And we're live streaming today with another episode of Moped Outlaws, number
It's been
61.
a while since we were live.
Since we did a live stream, it's been
Yeah.
years. It's been years. Yeah.
So one of the things that's happening is we've had 3 cancellations in a row on this show. Apparently, July is the month where guests were like, "Yeah, I can do that." And then like the day before they wake up and they're like, "I don't know, I can't talk."
Well, let's give some credence to them. The last 2 at least. I can't remember the third one. I think the third one just didn't show up, right?
Yeah. The 2 women that have canceled this last week had really good reasons.
Very
for
good
sure.
reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
today's guest is pregnant. And so the issue for her is she's just hot and uncomfortable and not going to be a good guest. And we think it's better for her that she said, "I don't want to do it." But of course, I still had to let my resentment out.
All right. That's great. And, fuck her. No, actually, she wrote this wonderful book that is about meditation in everyday life. And what I loved about it, and maybe she'll be on sometime in the future, but what I loved about it was there's a lot of science in it, very simply written, very easy to understand. But it's also in essence saying, hey, meditation isn't this big, scary thing. It's just whatever. You could do it lying down. You could do it sitting. You could do it walking. Here's all these different mediums for meditation, and also differentiating some stuff like hanging out in a hot tub with cocaine isn't meditating.
No.
Though some people in Marin might try to tell you it is.
Well, we're both in Marin.
Yeah, I'm one of those people.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the point you're making has some real merit to it, because so many people have this idea that there's this complicated thing, that there's an achievement oriented thing to it, and that quieting the mind, that's only for monks and Buddhists, and why, they can't even fathom that. And speaking as someone who's trained as a meditation instructor and as a certified meditation instructor myself, can we just relax and breathe?
Yeah. And sometimes can we be in the midst of some hardcore, heavy metal, techno, grunge chaos and know that that's God?
Yeah, got it, for sure. And today, man, oh my goodness, talk about chaos. Like the blue screen of death went out from all these systems. The internet broke in a whole bunch of ways for people on airplanes and in hospitals and in IT centers. Like, whoa, globally, that was weird.
Globally. That's
right?
What's brilliant. Yeah. And when I saw that headline this morning, I was like, yeah, whatever, more chaos just trying to get my attention. And then Bodhi, my youngest daughter, who's in Spain right now, texted us saying we couldn't check into our airport because of this, technical glitch. And I was like, oh, it's real.
Yeah. I also read another article which said a very similar thing happened the day after the last Republican convention in 2016, which was that over 2,000 flights got shut down the day after the Republican convention in 2016. So that's a little sort of secondary anomaly that I read about.
Between the lines, people, don't vote Republican. Okay.
Yeah. And I had a similar experience for myself this week when my internet provider was down. And I was like, okay, I can do this. Oh, nope, that synchronizes with the internet. I realized the list of things I could do got very short. And, my phone actually provided an opportunity through the cellular network. I seem to have left my phone somewhere.
We are now witnessing the individual scrabbling.
Where's my phone? Where's my phone? Yes. So for those of you who are live, all 0 of you apparently, you can make comments and we'll see it. So if you do comment on your social media outlet, we will see your comment.
Oh, you know what? That reminds me. I'm supposed to push go live on Instagram. Forgot to do that. All right, now we're live on Instagram.
Well, for those of you joining the call late, welcome to Instagram. So far, we've talked about meditation and how our guest was going to talk about meditation. We're sad she's not here. And we talked about the weird global blue screen shutdown that happened to Windows networks today and how fragile really this whole internet ecosystem really is. And one quote I was, this is the thing that we thought might happen for the turn of the century, 2001, 2000 thing. And then this is it. It's actually shut down. Like a whole bunch of systems don't work all over the globe.
I was talking with a woman yesterday and kind of thinking about how back in like 2012, 2015, around there, all these airy-fairy crystal people that I know in my life, you know, are like fifth dimension, all sorts of chaos. And they were saying like, you know, this is coming. And I'd be like, yeah, okay, right. And now I'm like, oh, guess what? It really is pretty intense right now. There is a whole lot. It's a very compact life right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of density. People's emotions are running high. And so I think that changes the shape of reality. When everybody's feeling super intense, it changes the way we're all manifesting our experience. And so we're all feeling all these intensities. And part of it is we're being provoked, right? Well, it's like our lives depend on the election. Like, oh my God.
You know, that opens up a can of worms.
There's a viewer. Hi, viewer. Say something in the chat and let us know who you are. Anyway, what were you saying, Greg? I interrupted you.
So I was saying that I forgot something about politics, can of worms.
Got it. So what I was saying is that the density of our experience from an emotional standpoint is really incredible. And that was prompted by you.
Well, but here's what I'm wondering. Because you said like part of what happens is our emotions run high with such a density to life. But I'm wondering, is density a byproduct of us, or are we collectively a byproduct of some other sort of spiritual element? The emotional chaos.
For sure, it's both. Like you're creating your part in it. And then collectively, we're all experiencing everybody else's vibe.
All right. So here's something I really want to talk about with you. Because I was talking with my sister last night and mentioned how these elements I've always dreamed of with this last little wandering I did at the beginning of July, or dreams I had that I was living. One example is this home I stayed in Arcata. I've always dreamed of being a vagabond and wandering about and just helping people with stuff I know how to do with web and stuff. And their website was super chaotic, and they have 3 rooms you can book, and only one of them was available and all this stuff. I was like, well, let's hang out in the morning and I'll help you with it. And that's what I did. And so I was talking with Rivka, and we were talking about how we are living our dream. Like we've had these dreams, and dreams seem to sort of be this future thing that's going to happen. And she thought it was really important that you and I talk about we're living our dreams. They are being actualized. And
absolutely. There's a whole neuroscience about this.
Well, one of the thoughts that you could probably talk in depth about is it occurred to me as she was mentioning this, gratitude is a big part of acknowledging one's living one's dream. And from neurological sciences, we know gratitude is a healthy outlook to life.
Yeah. So one of the interesting things, there's a book called The Four Agreements. And one of the interesting things about the first chapters in that book is it talks about this ancient Toltec wisdom, which predates Christ, that says reality is formed by us, that we are the crafters of reality. And so you make your dream what it is. And so if you gossip or you live in fear all the time or you do certain things to other folks, then you're poisoning the well of your dream. And then if we're all doing that, then our collective dream takes on a quality that we don't want to have. And one of the words people refer to it as Maya, the illusory world or the fabric of the universe. I think these are interesting metaphors, and if we were talking to a physicist, a quantum physicist, there might be some pushback from a physical sciences point of view, but there's also some interesting studies of the dynamic fields that we're all in, how we're affecting each other in the quantum field, and then also in the electromagnetic field, and then the electrical fields that are around our bodies and stuff. And I'm way into this stuff. Like I have a whole hour presentation I give on it. There's a guy named Joe Dispenza. For those of you who haven't heard of Joe Dispenza, his books are really amazing, particularly the one Becoming Supernatural. And then there's also this guy, Anil, A-N-I-L-L, Seth, from Sussex University. Just go to his TED Talk on YouTube, Anil Seth's Tech Talk, and he does the TED Talk. I can't talk.
Word coming to me.
Word to the mother. Anyway, he talks about how the brain is a predictive perception organ. It's not just a receiver. We're actually creating the way that we perceive what we perceive. And so without having a context that's already present in our brain, because it's just in a skull, it can't see, there's no light in there, it can't hear anything, but it's through these organs, the ears and the eyes, that we get perception. And he does a couple really great experiences right there during the discussion that shows you how you can go from not knowing to knowing just by having a pre-arranged awareness that's in your own skull. Go on.
And that brings me to, I think there's an element of biology that's beyond the five senses. And the easiest way to talk about it is the emotional sensory, which isn't a measured wave. It's not measurable in our physical realm, and it definitely exists in our realm. People have emotional sense. You can tell when someone's angry without them saying anything. You don't even have to look at their eyes and face. You can see the back of their head and go, oh, geez.
Right. You could even maybe tell if your eyes are closed.
Right.
And that development of that ability, that sensitivity, is something that's worthy of cultivating. It gives you access to yourself, first of all. And then what's going on with me? Like, that's number one. And then number two, you can sort of begin to recognize what's happening for other people, which was really powerful. One of the things Joe Dispenza talks about is how when we are in the thinking in the past or the future, i.e. regret, or in anxiousness, the electromagnetic field that surrounds our body shrinks down to a smaller size. And he's measured this in multiple environments. And then when we are in the present, when we slow down our brainwaves with meditation and other practices, our electromagnetic field expands. And when you're in that state, he calls that being more wave and less particle. And when you're in the other state, the clamped down state, you're more particle and less wave in the way that you're emanating or not emanating.
Okay. And then you bring science, like the measurement of light, how it is both a particle and a wave. And
right.
It seems like there's a oneness to what he's talking about, a piece of it. And perhaps that whole is when an individual is living as a particle and a wave. They're like, their experience is past, future, present. It's just all of it at once.
Yeah. And he's just done a bunch of science experiments, just do his best to measure it with mechanical devices as he can to sort of talk about this. And they use photon sensitive material to do some of those measurements. So it really is, how much light are you emitting? Right.
Yeah.
Admitting and emitting.
Well,
Like, how much am I letting in and how much am I putting out?
and that kind of goes back to our beginning, how we were talking about the social society, what we're experiencing globally, and wondering, is our emotional individual experience a byproduct of this global whole, or is the global whole created by the individual experiences altogether? And what rings to my mind, part of what I was talking with my sister about last night, is her and her husband have for 15 years been working on a dream of him as an artist out in the world, and their life supported by his creativity. And it's being actualized now. And my other sister and I were talking about how wonderful it is to witness this thing that they've been hard at work on for 15 years. And it's now coming to a fruition, a new level where they're living the dream. And so I think, in a sense, globally, what we're experiencing, the intensity, like you look at the history, especially what you and I have been very engaged in the past few years with the history of the United States and white privilege and the greed of capitalism. Like, I think humanity is harvesting something that's been created for what centuries.
Got it. I think there's microcycles and macro cycles. And so what I'm hearing you say leads me to think that there's these points at which things come to fruition or culmination. And then there's points at which the process is still at the level of being cultivated and being energized or being right. And then there's things where they pass away, that particular karma or that particular dream, however you want to term it, has completed and now is no longer with us. Right. And maybe some echoes and emanations. I mean, maybe it may be that it's never not totally with us. But so I see that on multiple levels. Like, and this is, I think, reinforced by A Course in Miracles, because one of the things it talks about in there is if you're actively engaging with the process consistently, then the timeline for healing shrinks, and how long it takes shrinks. And if to the extent we're all collectively doing our work, then we get closer and closer to the revelation of our true selves, of the remembrance of our true nature, our godlike reality. And I mean that in the terms of godlike in the sense of compassionate, loving, caring, fierce in that mode, as opposed to fierce in anger and retribution and judgment and those sorts of things. And I think that when you are practicing the evocation, the evolution of a dream that you're bringing to fruition, it takes time. It's like pineapple. You put a pineapple plant in the ground and it's 5 years till it gives you the first fruit, right? Lots of trees are like that too. And humans and our aspirations, it takes time for that stuff to come to the place where it's actually ready for the sharing of it and the nutritional value of it to show up for people. Yeah. And so that's how I see that.
Yeah. And I think what's important, because talking with Rivka, my sister, her and her husband have this anyway. She's talking about how there's times where, even though she knows she's on the right path and in alignment with their spirit and what they want to do, there's times where there's fear and trepidation. Like, I don't have a check coming in. What's going to happen? And to have people in your life that are looking from the outside and saying, I see you on the right path, is so supportive in those times. And what you just said reminded me how important it is to have people in our life that bolster us through our times of trial.
Yeah. In fact, that's something we can do for each other at a really high level. And a lot of us get locked into this idea that it has to be a long-term romantic partner, that's what it has to look like. But I think more and more we're finding out that micro doses of loving support for our constituencies, our friends, our family, even our social media acquaintances, can be really helpful when we acknowledge people and recognize their humanity just by listening to them properly, right?
Yeah.
And acknowledging what they tell us. And I agree, because I'll be honest, the last 6 weeks or so of my client base has been really a struggle, and I'm not meeting my financial obligations at the moment. And I have a partner who sees me and who says, yeah, I got you. I know this is coming. And I've been doing the things, showing up every day, being who I am. And, when I get on a call with a potential new client, I've gone 5 years ago, I was like running a sales script on them and trying to connect to their money right off the bat. And I've since learned, like, no, that's not who I want to be in this world. And
Right.
so what I do is I show up as a powerful listener and a person who asks really important questions. And then I trust that process leads to the desire for them to have the relationship with me. And I think the commercial relationship with me. And I think that more and more affirming people in all of our aspects, like, one of the things that really, really bothers me is the retail exchanges that happen between buyers and cashiers in areas where services are being provided, or goods like, coffee or groceries and stuff are being provided, or even restaurants with your wait staff. I know that what I do is I show up powerfully compassionate and see their humanity. I don't see them as the functional robot that gets me the thing I want. And so I love showing up that way in the world, and I can see how the people that I'm interacting with, their stress level goes down. There's a lot of people out there being super demanding and critical and acting out all of their angst and their frustration and their entitlement with these sorts of people. And I really don't like that when I do it. And so I try really hard to be like really present for everybody that I interact with at that level.
Well, I would welcome you into being more at ease with the volatile aspects of self that you currently embody. You and I have referred to it as shadow. And what comes to mind is just the other day, I called AT&T because my voice message service wasn't working. And the guy and I are starting to talk, and I'm, looking for service support anyway. And he started asking something, and I blew up. I was like, what the hell's going on here? And he's like, okay. And then I said, something. I said, like, I'm sorry I blew up. I'm calling about, I can't get a text message. I'm calling you from a landline. And he went, no, it's my mistake. I was looking at cell phone service, and I should have been looking at this other service. And what happened is we both acknowledged we had both participated in creating a volatile situation. And then it was over, and we had mended and moved on. And I know from my own experience, like in the past, I'd feel so guilty and what a bad person I am. And no, part of us being human is we could blow up. We get angry.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to go there.
Awesome.
This is the next level right here, folks. There are political parties out there, and you probably belong to this one or that one. And so much of our identities are built around, oh, that guy sucks and he's going to kill us all. It doesn't matter which side you're on. That's the message.
Right.
And my invitation to you is to move beyond that and realize, oh, that's a parent or a would-be parent. That's someone who wants to feel safe in their home. That's someone who doesn't want to be told what they can do in their church. That's someone who doesn't want someone to rob from them or to be taken to jail for something that's really not a crime.
So, what just happened?
Oh, switcheroo. See, that's what I mean, right? So when we can place ourselves for a moment in empathy with the quote other, there's an opportunity for us to break down all the fear that's fueling all of the chaos, right?
Yeah.
And have an opportunity to find out, oh, that's not really who I think they are. And I'm giving my power away when I'm acting out of fear and resentment and retribution.
Well, and part like this recent attempt on Trump's life, I was thinking about a lot of my peers and people I consider friends, and they're so angry with Trump. And I was like, well, that act came out of anger. And anger doesn't acknowledge nuance. It's anger. That's energy. Like you were talking earlier about energy and waves and particles that we're emitting. Anger's emitting that energy. And so, in essence, these peers, I think, were in part responsible for that action.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I think there's a point at which no, that boils down to the individual, right? And there's sort of someone on TikTok was talking about how they thought we jumped a timeline. And for those of you who understand what that is, it's sort of like we switched into a new quantum possibility as a whole. And I kind of related to it because I was like, there's a bunch of people who've been canceled on social media and things for saying things about that particular assassination attempt that got them in trouble with the constituency. And this person on TikToks basically was saying, like, there was a moment at which we all subconsciously confronted our desire to actually have Donald Trump die instead of becoming president. And
Right.
collectively, our subconscious said, no, no, no. Like, that would actually be way worse than this. And I ascribe to, and I'm outing myself, that I grappled with that internal awareness. Like, when it happened, when it went down and I heard it on the news, I thought back to about 6 weeks ago when I was feeling at my lowest. And I was like, the only way to stop the Nazi movement that I saw in him from coming to power is to actually have him shot. And so I got to confront that part of myself in the moment, in the contemplation of this action. And I realized that's not how I want to relate to this, because it's giving too much power away, for one. And two, I don't want to be on the receiving end of someone else's fear of me in that regard. The whole point of the dream of we the people America, which is, albeit a very sort of fallacious dream, is sort of like, ooh, that's a nice dream.
Well, it was
But
kind of
I don't.
polluted from
But
the
we can
get.
find a way to work this out without
Right.
having to resort to violence. That's the whole point of voting and democracy and having a judicial system that's based on juries of peers. And, we still have a lot of shit to work out. It's not working very great. But if we hold true to this ideal that it's okay for you to want to have, like, be a Christian evangelist, and it's okay for me to worship Satan, and it's okay for me to want to meditate and take mushrooms, and it's okay for you to want to be like an Amish person who doesn't even drive in a car, like, and we can still sit down in the commons around the fountain in our town, and everybody can kind of have what they want, with limits. Like, I personally don't want you sacrificing goats in the commons. But if you want to buy some land and your church wants to do goat sacrifice, that's like between you and the goat.
I'm reminded, I just heard a stand-up bit last night where the guy was saying, it's the second thing we wrote. It's the second thing that we wrote down. The first was say whatever you want. And then we said, but you better have a gun.
Yeah, I see the humor in that. But also, like, man, none of those people knew what guns were going to become at the level they are now.
Yeah, that's for sure. And there's a whole lot of debate. And, as you just said, this dream was kind of polluted from the get-go because
Right.
humans are humans, but it's still a dream worthy of dreaming. And I think a lot of the dreamers, that's what they're really saying. It's a dream worth dreaming, and it can be actualized.
Right. And in this context where everybody's running for cover and fearful and worried about how things are going to turn out, we need to codify and identify and then create a story that is an exalted possibility, that's a something that we can aim at together, that has room for all of us in it.
And therefore, I support us to live as exalted beings and to support others to live exaltedly. And I think that part of my button pushing comes from that place of like, this isn't really who you are. This individual getting upset in this moment with what I just did isn't really who we are. And at any given moment, we have an opportunity to let it go and live at a higher place.
I think you're referring to the conversation before we went on the air.
Yeah, but also just globally, like that was a good example.
Yeah.
But I think I'm just also speaking very generally.
Yeah. Meditation is a form of managing our nervous systems. And what you're speaking to really is ultimately, how self-regulated can I be? How present, grounded, and self-safe in my own way of looking at the world and generating a sense of safety from my own experience that's not up to external stimuli, that it's not fuck withable, to put it
Right.
mildly,
Yeah.
right?
Like, how can I keep from coming too early? That's really important.
Well, the answer there is abstinence.
No, it's got to be, I want to be a participant.
I'm kidding. Of course it's not abstinence. But since I'll just go right there. Slowing down. That's a super powerful, like, feel the sensation in super hyper slow-mo. There's so much pleasure in that. Right? It's this idea that we're chasing some kind of thing that happens at the end. That's the issue. And then we become worried that we're going to get to that end too quickly, and that's robbing us of the moment, right? So if you can stay with just what this is right now, then there is no such thing as too soon. Yeah. I've got an answer for anything. If you're watching the show, put a comment in and ask me anything under the sun. I've got all the answers. I'm sure of it.
Yeah. All right.
If I don't, I'll make something up.
I like that. That's politics, people.
Whoa. You just called the P word.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. I'm willing to own my my political acumen or my bullshit capacity.
You know what I'm reminded of is so much of me is an me against them thing when it comes to politics. I had this wonderful conversation with the mayor of Mill Valley yesterday regarding the Curtain Theater that does free Shakespeare every summer on the stage beyond the Mill Valley Library. It was a really wonderful, supportive conversation. And so my experience with authority is when I actually engage with people in places of authority, like you were saying earlier, recognizing their humanity, their people too, I actually have very positive outcomes and find that they actually want to be allies of action and supportive.
Yeah. Yeah. There's so much fear being proffered. We become habituated to our fear response before it even happens.
Yeah, where's that come from? That's why I think like you just, God damn, so much just rushed through my head. Like if we go back to the caveman things where, you know, the reptile brain and fight or flight was so part of survival, and then that gets thrown through the DNA and perpetuated through eons and generations. And
yep, we've all still got amygdalas back there.
Yeah.
But well, that's why training, a la meditation and language, people forget that how we speak to ourselves and how we speak to each other matters. We're like every moment we're training ourselves about how we respond. And that also has a cumulative effect on our ability to stay present as opposed to become triggered by our fight, flight, fear, fawn, and fuck it
What
response.
wasn't that part of your martial arts training is to be present in the moment of what your opponent's doing and to not be in a place of fight or flight, to be more conscious and grounded?
Well, any training, not just mine, but yeah, for sure. That's something I would call a takeaway for martial arts. Um, I think it's true also of things like sports and surfing and even negotiating a deal, which is theoretically a non-physical altercation, right? You're
I'm thinking
all of the
even
above.
your own practice, orgasmic meditation, was for me a practice of being present and not being in this state of frenzy and fight or flight by overwhelming stimulation.
Yeah. What an amazing thing, and a nod to Nicole Didone and her team for that practice, and then those who came before who taught Nicole from the warehouse and other places. The center of vigilance is what that whole practice is all about, and it's from the female point of view and from the male point of view, or from the receiving point of view and the stroking point of view, like however you want to look at it. And I know that confronting what I found in that, confronting myself
Mhm.
and the way that I showed up in that situation was super powerful in my life, because I learned to recognize how my own foibles, my own fears, my own insecurities, my own projections about what was supposed to happen would show up. And as a result, I began to see that as an allegory for life and how I showed up in life. And the mastery of being present is very much in alignment with what we were talking about before as being healed, right? There's that thing where we kind of all get our shit together, and what it means is we're able to stay in the moment, stay in our breath, stay present for what's happening, and not become dysregulated, right? But also able to feel, like, have that full emotional range available, because it's not shut down and constricted and impervious. That's not it. That's brittle, and you're going to break under pressure in that situation.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you're like water, like Bruce Lee said, be like water, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was his analogy with water? I think it'd be helpful to
Water
people who aren't
water
familiar.
crashes, water flows, water. That's only the two things I remember from the quote. I don't
I
have the
remember
quote.
it becomes the form that it is a part of. Like you pour it
Right.
into a teapot, it's formed as the teapot is
Right.
formed.
So together, the two of us, were getting part way to Bruce Lee's brilliance. I love it. Yeah.
God, that guy was quick
Whoa. And small.
and small. Tight,
Yeah.
tight motherfucker.
Yeah. And by the way, Netflix, if you're listening, please get season 4 of The Warrior under production. We want to see another season of The Warrior. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, The Warrior is a television show on Netflix that was built out of these stories that Bruce Lee was writing, and a television show he tried to get made in the late 70s through ABC, and they didn't buy in. And so years and years later, his daughter Shannon Lee was able to collect all of those things, get a writing team together, and make the most of the thoughts and ideas that were expressed there and bring it to fruition in the form of a TV show called The Warrior. And it's a brilliant show. It's got kung fu and blood if you want that, but it's also got really interesting human relationship introspection, the dynamics of culture and racism, and how we see each other through the lenses of hierarchy. It's got Irish policemen and land barons and Chinatown. It all takes place in the late 1800s of San Francisco.
And
And
powerful females and
yes,
females that are under the patriarch.
yoke. Yep,
Yeah,
the
the
yoke
yoke.
of patriarchy. Yep.
Yeah, it's just it's really is very multi-dimensional in that way.
Right. And I'm just so grateful because I was old enough to know about Bruce Lee and see his movies in the theaters as a young man, and then to experience what it was to lose him to death, an untimely death, and then know that there was a TV show that he wrote, like that was in a bunch of the books. Just knowing that, and that was like a 25-year wait for something to happen with that stuff. And I was talk about manifesting, talk about holding on to a dream. I waited and waited and waited when I was hoping like someday maybe, right? And it came true. It happened.
Hey, let me ask you, because I saw at least the first two seasons, and what I recall is the season that I finished ended with the huge painting of him on the wall, and he's sort of become like this heroic deity element in Chinatown. Was that
Yeah.
the end of season two or season three?
Season 2.
Okay, so I still have season three to watch. Okay.
Yeah. And so the character you're talking about's name is Assam. And Assam is a great kung fu fighter, and he's one of the main protagonists. Like we follow his story, like the opening shots of the series are him. I'm not certain that he's, quote, the Bruce Lee character. Like, I don't think Bruce is actually in there, but there's elements of his fighting style,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think lots of different characters actually have different aspects of who Bruce was as a man and as a fighter. And so that's one of the interesting things about the show is that it doesn't actually make someone into a Bruce Lee figure in the show and therefore fall short. Like, oh, well, that's not Bruce, and Bruce wouldn't do that, and yada, yada, yada. So it avoids that pitfall. And there's a lot of the philosophical pieces get really, 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 expanded.
And I think the relationship between him and his sister, I found that fascinating. Like where he finally meets up with his sister, and she's like, "Fuck you, you left me. Fuck you, get the fuck out of here. You're dead." And he's like he's just been through so much to finally meet up with her, and that's what he receives. I was like, "Oh,
Yeah, and what I found, what the symbolism for that for me was, men in particular, but people in general, we have a thing going in our mind about what we think our relationship is like with people based on our own little ego trip and the story we're telling ourselves about the choices we make. And then often when we get to the moment of culmination or the day of reckoning, or even just like a casual like connection moment, we find out just how different things are than what we thought they were. And
yeah,
how our vision of ourselves and our integrity and the way that we are operating does not actually resonate with the person that we think the way we think we do. And it's challenging. He's set back on his heels by that. And,
yeah,
and that's a really great point of tension that is woven throughout the drama.
yeah."
Right. And you'll find when you get to season 3 that there's elements of how that relationship shifts in season 3. And in one sense, there's a season 3 ends and feels complete as a season. There's no cliffhanger, but there's just so much about what happened after that could be told. There's like, it just leaves it at a place where there's so much that we could be told. And then also the prequel part of it, like what was their life like when they were kids that had them all land there, and what was her life like, and how did she end up as one of the prime matriarchs of China, or in Chinatown in San Francisco.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful story. And it's sort of funny because there's a David Carradine TV show called Kung Fu, and they're both in the same timeline.
Yeah.
Right. They're both existing in the same historical timeline and locale, like California, the West is a big part of the Kung Fu. And, it feels like, and the story I have going is that ABC didn't really want to deal with having an actual Asian person as the protagonist in their show. And they kind of took Bruce's idea and then did their own thing with it. Right.
Well, isn't it? No, it was the Green Hornet where Bruce was up for the role and they hired a white.
No, Bruce was the Green Hornet. He was Kato.
Oh, wasn't there a show then where
that's where people like to think that he was going to be the David Carradine character in Kung Fu, but it turns out that's not true.
Okay.
It was never. It was. He wasn't. He didn't audition. It wasn't a thing. It was. It was just the because the similarities are there. People want to make up conspiracies about what happened. But from what I've heard, and because I had those conspiracies, let's be honest. Like I was making up shit. 25 years waiting for this show. I was like, wow.
Hollywood.
Yeah. But turns out that Bruce presented the ideas to a couple people and they weren't buying. He was frustrated by that. And then he went off to make Return of the Dragon. Or is it Return of the Dragon? Enter the Dragon.
He did Enter the Dragon. And then the second one was... There was a sequel to Enter the Dragon.
Game of Death, and he died during the production of Game of Death. And they were like, how are we going to finish this? It's not all here.
Okay.
But they figured it out. And that was interesting because that has Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in it.
All right, that's the one with Kareem. You know what? I was thinking of Chuck Norris the other day because Candy bought some nutrient supplement that's from Chuck Norris's line of products. And I was thinking about, like, he really was a master in the martial arts at a time when it was not really popular amongst Caucasian people.
I mean, he was a world champion competition karate man.
Right.
And then he moved into film.
Yeah. And I was thinking, like, my gut feeling is that for Bruce to bring him on to such a powerful role in that story was a sign of respect from Bruce.
We're live on the air, Candy, just so you know.
I know. I'm sorry. No, the Chuck Norris thing, that's why I stopped, because there was a reason. My father had his PhD, okay? And there were certain men that he told me about before they became famous. We used to watch, black and white TV. I was a kid. And I remember him pointing to this black kid, and he said, that kid is the best fighter I've ever seen. And he's not only a fighter, he's going to be one of the best showmen you've ever seen. Who was that?
Muhammad Ali.
I already told you.
No, of course it's Muhammad Ali.
His name was Cassius Clay back then. Okay.
Right.
But he didn't want to go. He didn't want to
That
go.
was his slave name, Cassius Clay.
Anyway, and I'm trying to, Chuck Norris was another guy. I'm trying to think of some of these guys that were big nobodies, but my father really knew. He knew a lot of stars. My father was very accomplished in what he did. He knew Sally Rand. You don't know who she was. They were like best friends. Okay, she was the world's most famous stripper. Oh. And they were good friends. And whenever she was in a parade, she'd always go to my dad. My father was built. He was a health nut too. You never know it. And no, he was built. And he was really handsome. He had blue eyes. Sherry and I don't look at all like him. But no, he knew all these people. Oh, aren't you the cutest little thing, Mark? You haven't changed. Don't get cheek, your little cheek. But yeah, another one. He said, see that man? He knows what he's talking about. He knows. And you know what his name was? Oh God, I can't remember.
Timmy.
No.
Tiny Tim.
No. He was a health nut.
Jack LaLanne.
Jack LaLanne. He knew him, but he also, who he
Sally
knew?
Stanford.
How did you know that? No, but he knew like these names, these were famous like back east, and they were wrestlers. Haystack Calhoun, Gorgeous George, Haystack Calhoun, Gorgeous George.
Timmy, Tiny Tim.
Haystack.
So can I ask you a question, Candy, while we have you?
Yeah.
Would you have ever wanted to be a stripper? And do you think being a stripper is sort of demeaning or not demeaning?
No, because if it wasn't Sally Stanford. Sally Rand. She was a stripper. My father told me about her. They were now. I know this sounds crazy, but she was a very, very intelligent lady.
She's not going to answer the question.
Okay, is it demeaning? No.
Okay, and would you ever do it? Would you have done it earlier in your life?
No, I'm too. I don't remember. Even if I had a great body, I just couldn't do it. I wasn't. I was broad.
You're not an exhibitionist.
No, I'm not. I have a hard time even the first time going to bed with somebody what I look like. Even when I look good. Okay. No, it was always just, I've always been very shy about that.
Got it. Now, you're live on the internet right now, right?
Okay. I'm going home.
You are home.
Oh, everybody.
Yeah. This is being recorded and it's going out live to Instagram and Facebook. We're doing our show right now. But
And-
thank you.
And YouTube.
Oh, and YouTube. Lots of love, Candy. Enjoy the summer.
You too, sweetie. I'm gonna get back to my book. I'm reading this great book. Believe it or not, it's about Vietnam.
What's it called?
God, what's it called? I just started it. It was given to me by a friend of mine. I can't remember. It's by a very famous author who I can't remember either. It's a woman author too.
Okay, well, we'll get that for publication
She's
when
one of
it
the bestsellers in 2024.
Okay.
So
it is 2024.
No, I know, but that's her claim to fame.
So, but for the audience, we'll get the link for the book for when we publish it for when the podcast goes live on Monday.
It's all about Vietnam.
Great chatting with you.
Okay, bye. I know. Get lost. That's what you're saying. I got it.
You know what I just noticed is it's about 2 minutes delayed on Instagram.
Okay.
The stream.
That's good. They're trying to keep us from saying anything that might upset the whole balance of power throughout the world of internet philosophy. Oh, and that thing where I was looking for my phone earlier, it's buzzing now. So, of course, I had it all along.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth of us? That thing we're looking for, we had it all along.
Right in front of us. Right?
It's
that
been
sense
there
of
the whole time.
self-assurance.
You know,
yes.
Check this out. I was talking with Jonah because part of Jonah's dream, I'm going to say this as quick as possible because we're coming to the end of our show, people. Drink Adrenochrome Cola, subscribe, like, leave comments, love your people, love your mom, call your dad, be a bitch. Okay, so I was talking with Jonah, and his dream is to create an AI that goes out into the universe, discovers what he needs particularly to lead a perfect life, and comes back and just downloads it into him. So he's like, in essence, a bodhisattva. He's just on and on. And so I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then I was like, okay, if we think of the spiritual writings and studies I've done, it's always saying it's in us, like God is in us. That moment of realization is there, it's there constantly. So at any given moment, we could be like realized individuals. So the potential of something outside of ourselves showing us what is already there is there. That is a potential of existence. So why aren't we in this moment just enlightened beings?
Well, we are, but we just forgot.
God damn it.
So to be reminded, go to the beach, go hang out with the trees, go to downtown Manhattan and wander and look around at all the amazing humans that are there. It's all right there waiting for you to recognize yourself in it and to just give up your struggle of who you are and why you're here and just be with the fact that we're all so lucky to be alive and so lucky to have these moments together. And love is ours for the making.